What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jay Rich, back in another episode of Across the Pod with my main man, Tom. Game week 1 is over, and we have a lot of work to do, my friend. Some of our predictions were great. Some of the players you brought up for your watch list were phenomenal, and some of them not so much. But we do have a list of defenders, midfielders, and forwards that impressed in game week 1, or maybe didn't. And let's touch on some of the players we're targeting heading into Game Week 2 and whether or not we are buying or selling some of these players going into Game Week 2. So let's kick it off with the defenders, because the Cuyper for Brighton, and especially Brighton, the performance as a whole, unbelievable. Completely unexpected this week. Obviously, hauled in a major way. 17 points, clean sheet, goal and assist. Absolutely ridiculous. Of course, he is a defender in FPL, and he's playing on the left-hand side for Brighton, which from FPL standards is obviously a cheat code, but at 4.5 million, is he a must-own player going forward? Would he be your first transfer heading into Game Week 2?
Yeah, look, he's one of the players that we highlighted last week as playing out of position. We like it. We don't necessarily know what Brighton's defense is going to be like, and I think we were erring more towards Kadioglu or Vuskovic. I still think Vuskovic is a longer term a better pick because of the DEFCON. Yep. And the Cuyper's kind of playing the role of Mitoma until Mitoma comes back. Like, he won't get the left back slot, but he's currently playing left wing. Obviously did well in preseason as well, and obviously did very well against Aston Villa. I guess the one thing that I would like 4.5 million, great value for a left winger who's going to get, he got a goal and assist and a clean sheet. 17 points is absolutely crazy. I just think, I don't know if you're kind of bringing him in, whether that's chasing last week's points with Chelsea away and how good Chelsea looked. I just think, like, we planned all game week before for game week 1. We've got to think longer term. I think I wouldn't waste a transfer on bringing De Cuyper in with Chelsea away.
Okay. And honestly, I tend to agree, right? I think you are points chasing, but he was phenomenal. It's kind of hard to get away from that. He was so good, and you look to what happened even against Fulham, you say, well, why can't Brighton put up 2 or 3 goals on Chelsea just like Fulham did? Again, that game may end up being 4-3 or something a bit more high scoring, depending on how Brighton's defense plays. We obviously saw Chelsea's attack was phenomenal. That's why you see Pedro and Palmer on this list as well. But I think I agree with you that Vuskovic over the long term should be more consistent. Maybe not going to give you the high-end hauls that you, again, may get from De Cuyper because he is playing on that left side. And if he does get the clean sheet, obviously you're just stacking points on top of points. But over the long term, he's probably the better asset, and I wouldn't chase it just yet. And people who aren't watching this later on, he's probably already 4.6 because he is definitely going to rise. He's been transferred in like over 200,000 times, and so he will rise up to 4.6, maybe even 4.7, depending on what happens throughout the rest of the game week, but probably at least a single rise for him, and much more difficult to obtain depending on where your transfers are going. Getting into Marc Guehi, though, playing CDM for Man City, which was interesting. Nico O'Reilly playing the cam position, and I don't know why Maresca decided to do that, because once Cherky came in, the team was significantly better. 2 questions for you. Where are you at on Guehi? Because, again, him playing CDM is not expected over the long term. Enzo Fernandez is highly linked right now as we're talking. Hasn't been confirmed yet, but it seems like it might just happen. Chelsea seem like they're going to sell Nicholas Jackson to Aston Villa, so that's another move Chelsea's making, but Enzo may also be on the way out. So Guehi probably returns back to center back. I believe we had Ruben Diaz and who was other playing center back for them? Gavardio was playing center back, which again I didn't love, but
Krasnovic.
Yeah, I think Krasnovic playing out there. So it's like Guehi at 6 million. He scored a goal. He actually had 2 great chances to score. Do you like him at 6 mil though? Because I just was overall not impressed by City's attack.
I just think I'm not overall impressed by City at all. And I think a lot of people had this sneaking suspicion in preseason that City weren't going to look great. I think Guehi was one of the top defender on points last season. So I think he is still a good option, probably one of the best. Gvardiol also scored only 5.5 though. So I just think with the uncertainty around City, probably not looking to bring in Guehi either. Although if he does continue to play CDM and get good chances, then he has more routes to points. I don't hate it, but I just think wasting a transfer on a man, like, I don't know how Maresca's going to line up next game week. They would look, I don't know how on earth they got 3 points. Yeah. So I think Man City is very much a wait and see for me. And I think Crystal Palace away isn't necessarily a game I'd want to bring in Guehi for.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. We don't know where he's going to play. And to be honest, like between Anderson and Guehi, it just felt like that pass up to the attack just wasn't there. They could only play through the
Fantastic,
wings, and then they would double off Semenyo, and he'd have to pass it back, and there was nobody to make that pass through until Cherokee came in and basically changed the entire attack for City. Completely agree there. Calafiori, a player that I was fading a lot. I wasn't sure about the minutes, played 90 minutes, got the clean sheet, and probably the easiest assist he's ever had in his life after that turnover from Coventry. Again, the weird thing for me with Arsenal is that they did win 3-0. They did dominate the game, but the attack didn't seem as dominant as I expected. I think it's weird way to put it, but I wasn't overall convinced that this team is going to dominate every single week. Now, again, they're playing Villa. We saw what happened to Villa. They got destroyed, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, even though they're trying to make a ton of transfers to get some last-minute players in before the window closes. Yeah. Another great fixture for Arsenal. And how do you feel about Calafiori at 5.5? Probably another player who will be rising this week.
Yeah, I think Arsenal is a very similar story to last season in that they are just so convincing defensively, but tend to only win games by 1 or 2. Like Arsenal 2-3 seasons ago, win games 4-5-0 with Saka getting 2-3 goals, everyone pitching in like Martinelli, Havertz, Odegaard. Now it feels like they kind of win games 1 or 2 and they just look convincing and more structured, especially with 4 centre-backs basically playing. Rice, Bruno Guimaraes, if he's fit. There's not much. They're going way more for just the structure and playing it safe, really. But I think for Calafiori, the issue is I don't have him on my team, but I really wanted him for the Coventry at home fixture. I just then didn't want him for the next 5 to 6 games. Yeah. I still think that Arsenal is a very convincing defense, but I'm not going to transfer in Calafiori if I don't already have him. I think the benefit was that first game week and then moving forwards. I think last season he got 1 goal and 2 assists. So he's already half the way through his assist total for the whole of last season from 1 game. He may continue to be doing that. I saw like in training, he's been doing the drills with overlap. He's been practicing with the strikers for shooting. But again, I don't think it's enough to convince me to rip up my team and bring in Calafiori.
Yeah, and you only have 1 transfer this week. So again, I tend to agree. If that's the move you want to make, it's just feels like a move that, again, chasing the points a little bit. Now, I don't think we have to talk about Vuskovic-Tubic. Obviously, Brighton destroyed their opponent this week. They played so well. There was basically very little offensive threat against them, which was a little bit surprising. Muharemovic, though, you were all over him at $5 million. You thought it was a fantastic price. I think Leeds kind of got lucky to get the clean sheet and definitely got lucky to get the win, but the salesman did what he does, and he absolutely sold on that Statch free kick. It was a good free kick, but probably should have been saved. Love the way he played, though. He didn't get DEFCON, right, which he was known for coming over from the other league. But even still, I thought he played really well in the middle there and did get forward a little bit, making some passes. So I do like him going forward. But again, not necessarily a player I'd make a transfer in unless I was desperate. We have Jean-Paul Van Heck in our team. Don't really want him in the team right now, but I don't know if I can make that switch from him to Muharemovic because of some of the other issues you may have within your team.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of positives for him. I think he has aerial threat. I think the way Leeds play is very attacking. He's aggressive on the front foot. So I think although he didn't get DEFCON this game, I think he'll continue to get it in other games going forward. Brentford at home is a great fixture, and let's see how Leeds play. But I actually think Leeds all through pre-season and into the first game we look pretty convincing, and I think they'll finish top 10. So I think you're getting a hopefully like equivalent of like this year's Tarkowski. That's what we were looking for. So last year's Lacroix, Senesi, Tarkowski.
Yeah, I'd say Senesi is probably what you're hoping for because a bit more attacking threat.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what we're looking for, that $5 million price point. So we've got 1 game week of data. He's got a clean sheet, played pretty well. I think if you're looking for a $5 million price point, between him and Vuskovic are probably my 2 favorites. I think I'd probably pick Muharemovic slightly more so just because Brighton still have a Europe game on Thursday. Don't know, Vuskovic played Thursday, Sunday. If he's going to play Thursday, there's a likelihood that Lewis Dunk comes in for the weekend. Similarly with Cuyper, missed their last game in Europe. They drew 0-0 against Tromsø. Probably means that they need to win this game for Europe. So Cuyper might play, having played so well in the Premier League. So it's like this whole thing is just like a bit of a nightmare with early fixtures. We've got some Carabao Cup games. We've got some Europe games. I just think you're better off if you can rolling your free transfer to let the games just settle down after this week and look with 2 free transfers kind of next week. But I guess my favorite ones are the defenders, Vuskovic and Muharemovic at $5 million. And then at 4.5, I'd actually take Ayer for Brentford
Yeah.
because he got DEFCON, he got a clean sheet. We said last week we love Brentford. They're looking really convincing.
Very good, yeah.
And you're basically getting a DEFCON player with clean sheet potential for 4.5 million. I just think there's absolute value in Ayer.
Yeah, I mean, at 4.5 in a game that they completely dominated for like the first 45, 50 minutes, to still get DEFCON was pretty surprising, honestly, because there wasn't a whole lot going on for the Brentford defense. He played really, really well. And, we could kind of transition, since we're talking Brentford anyways, over to your boy Sangaré, who played phenomenally. I was looking up his FootMob page, and there is just stuff everywhere from left side to right side, all over the pitch. This guy was playing phenomenally. But the biggest thing for me was that 1-2 that led to the first goal was all him. And if he's going to be doing that on a regular basis, he at 5.5 is an absolute steal. And the funny thing is you go to him, you go to Szoboszlai, who obviously got the pen late. I don't know if he played overly well, but at his price point, it's hard to not have a conversation about him. So when you look at players that disappointed in that 7.5, 7 mil range, Sangaré is a player I'd want to pivot to. If I had an Anderson from City, I'd pivot down to Sangaré. Like, I think there's a lot of ways you can kind of go down there. And Szoboszlai is kind of the same. And the question I have for you kind of coming in, as bad as some of the performances were this week, Semenyo, terrible. Less than 0.1 goal involvements. There was nothing going on for City. He was basically double the whole game and couldn't do anything. Couldn't create. Why would I not go from 8.5 mil Semenyo to Szoboszlai right now?
I don't think there is a reason you shouldn't do that. I think Szoboszlai now, I think the reasons people didn't pick him was there's other options which are more exciting. He doesn't get many open play goals last season. I think only like 3. But the amount of involvement he was in for Liverpool and how unconvincing Wirtz was, and as soon as Wirtz went off and Szoboszlai played in the 10, they clicked a lot better. He was playing good through balls. He gets every single set piece he's on it, whether it's corners, crossing it in, taking, shots at goal. And then I guess the one thing that, if I knew for definite Szoboszlai was also on penalties going forward, I think he's a 7 million set and forget for Liverpool the whole season. Like, he will just get points, and at 7 million, amazing value. If he doesn't have penalties, and the reason was that he took that penalty just because Isaac bottled it against his whole team, then I think Szoboszlai is still, for me, kind of a wait and see.
So what is your confidence level in him taking... Because for me, I saw all I needed to see. He's going to be on direct free kicks, which he can score from. He's probably the best in the Prem at that right now.
Yeah.
And he's going to be on penalties, which I'd say I'm about a 70% confidence level that he's going to be on penalties going forward.
I think even potentially higher. I know Areola came out after the game and said, look, he took a fantastic penalty. He's been practicing penalties, but we've also got Alex Isaac. We've got Alexis McAllister, who can take penalties when they step up. So I just think maybe the next one they'll give to Isaac, but maybe they rotate it. But I think after taking a penalty like that, why would you not take the second penalty? Like, there's no way as a manager I would let anyone else take a penalty.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Unless you think Isaac needs his confidence up, which he probably does because he hasn't been playing fantastic.
Yeah.
So I would probably say similar to you. I think 75% Szoboszlai, but they might rotate back to Isaac and forward. So yeah.
Yeah, and so that's where, again, something that I've been looking at with my team. I have Semenyo on my team, and I'm just like, man, if I don't believe in City and I'm unsure about their attack going forward and his involvement in that, if they're not going to be a prolific attack, he's just completely overpriced, even relative to Gibbs White, who didn't play overly well either, but there was still more attacking threat from Forest against Leeds, who I still think is a quality side. So it's interesting to kind of compare that. At 7 mil, I think he's an absolute steal. Again, ownership's going to be high, but after that penalty, it's just hard not to ignore his role and his price kind of all aligning to be pretty good going forward. Now, Saka and Palmer, both 9.5 million. Saka scored. Palmer got a goal and an assist in that game. That front three from Chelsea, all of them scored and 2 of them got an assist. So they kind of did what they had to do, right? But any thoughts of bringing either of those into your team going forward? Very expensive relative to some other players and kind of tough to make happen, but maybe you're looking for a Bruno pivot after his blank against Hull to a Palmer or a Saka going forward.
Yeah, the thing is with Saka is I think it was 2 point earlier. Arsenal didn't, they won 3-0, but they didn't really get into second gear. I feel like none of their players are kind of Hall potential. Like, they all get 1 goal or 1 assist, and it's 3 different goal scorers always. Havertz might become Gyökeres, Saka might become Madueke, and they kind of rotate. So for me, I think for Saka, still get his fitness up. Looked really sharp though, but Villa away, probably not a player in a game, even though how bad Villa were. I think the next few fixtures for Arsenal, I'd much rather look at Parma, who has Brighton at home, Arsenal away, a tough fixture, but then Hull at home. I think a lot of people are looking game week 4, either wild card or save your free transfers to bring in the likes of Parma, João Pedro, and Rodgers against Hull at home. I think that Chelsea fixture is what most people are targeting. And the way that Parma played, I mean, we spoke about him as one to watch in pre-season. Looks relatively sharp again, had the whole summer off, got snubbed by England. So, the redemption arc is there. And I think he looks like he's enjoying his football again, like taking on players, not just playing the deep role with Cucurella and Enzo up front and Palmer playing CDM almost, like dropping back. I think the way that Alonso's setting up really suits the front three as being fluid and all. I think that's the benefit of doubling up on Chelsea. I don't mind, everyone's got João Pedro, but I don't mind having Palmer as again, because if one of them scores, it's typical that the other one assisted them. Yeah. Whereas someone like having Saka, I wouldn't also want Havertz. So I do think that, they're a team where if you think they're going to play well, you're going to benefit from having those assets.
Yeah, there's a lot more goal scoring options, it feels like, at Arsenal, and just like the way that they score goals. They just spread it around a lot more. For Chelsea, I expect it to be a very concentrated effort in that front three, right? They're highly paid, very talented players. They all work very well together. You saw that with the Pedro to Palmer goal. And even you look to Morgan Rogers' goal, again, it was a great pass, but still, the way they play, it's just all interconnected, and those two are going to be very involved in a lot of the attack going forward. Now, any thoughts about Hinshelwood at $6 million? Phenomenal price, scored 2 goals. Again, talking more about how prolific Brighton was in this game, completely dominated from start to finish. The game was over in like the first 20 minutes, but any thought of bringing him in for his price point at $6 million? There's a lot of $6 million players we like. We like Sangaré at 5.5, but any thoughts of bringing him in playing the cam for Brighton?
Yeah, he's an interesting player because I owned him towards the end of last season. He did pretty well in that 10 role. I just don't think he's naturally a 10. His stats look really good, but they had a really good first game. I think I'm not breaking up my team to bring in Hinshelwood, but I think if you own him, hold him, and he's fantastic. See how he plays. Chelsea didn't look convincing defensively either, and they got Sanchez in goal, so could mean anything. But I just think this year, the price point, there's so much value in the cheaper players, and then also having Palmer and Saka at 9.5 and Bruno all the way up at 12. It's just like, I think Bruno's massively overpriced. To the point where, you can get Palmer and Saka, who are equally as attacking, but also on penalties, for kind of 3 million cheaper. I think as we get to, game week 3 and 4, 5, there's going to be a question after this Ipswich at home game for Bruno. If he doesn't...
It's a big game for all United assets right now.
It's a big game because everyone's hedged their bets on Mbeumo and Bruno going into season against 2 promoted sides. If he doesn't do well against Ipswich at home, I dread to think how many transfers out he's going to have. And it's going to go straight to Palmer or Saka. And it's a very easy switch. And you're freeing up to improve the rest of your midfield. So I think there's so many benefits of switching from Bruno. But then also he could become a differential as people move away from him. That's the kind of issue there.
Yeah, and you brought up Mbeumo, another one, Cunha, if you have him. Like all of the United assets right now, they're not really being transferred out simply because of the fixture they have this week. But if anything goes wrong, even a 1-1 draw where, Bruno doesn't do a whole lot, maybe Mbeumo scores, I still feel like there's going to be a lot of pressure going the wrong direction as far as price movement goes and value for those players. Like I have Mbeumo on my team right now, and I want to take him out, but is it the best move for my team currently? That's what I really struggle with. Let's get into the forwards because João Pedro scored and assists Havertz. Probably one of the best goals he's ever scored. Super easy, right in the bottom corner. Great goal from Havertz. Glad we shouted him out in the forward show because, again, it showed in that first game week. And Wissa playing the 10 for Newcastle. They looked significantly better than a lot of people expected. Only $6 million, so same price point as DCL, who did nothing. And who is it? Sunderland's Robbie. Another very popular pick there at $6 million. Would you pivot off either of those to Wissa as your forward selection, or would you kind of stay pat? Pedro seems like he's a player you pretty much have to have in your team. Much like last year, there were stretches where he was just so good. Havertz is one I'm considering as a differential, but again, I'm not that keen on Arsenal assets just yet. And Wissa definitely is interesting at $6 million, depending on where you're at with your team.
Yeah, I think there's more exciting players in the defense and midfield that I'm looking at, but I think if you don't own João Pedro, that should be your priority. Equally, Havertz again, played well, scored a goal, plays for probably the Premier League winners this year, but only got 6 points. That's the same as Muharemovic, Vuskovic, who did nothing and just got a clean sheet. So
Yeah.
I just think he doesn't have the ability to go and score 2, 3, 4 goals and assist. So I think Havertz is kind of a wait and see, but I do think he is great value at 7.5 compared to, Thiago's 8 million. Isak is 9 million.
Yeah.
So, I think he's good value at that price point if you want to have a bit of a differential. And then Wissa, the reason that I think he is on this watch list for me is he looked like a transformed player.
Yeah.
Looks like finally had a preseason. He's fit again. Got away from this injury last season. He looked like a player reborn. Involved in so many attacks. Got an assist. I think it could be better. And I think he's going to be one of the first names on the team sheet. I know Osula got an injury. He might be playing 9 now. And he's probably most likely on penalties. I think at 6 million in an attacking Newcastle side who looked pretty convinced, scored 2 against Liverpool, looked pretty convincing. I think Wissa could be massive value at 6 million.
No, and I completely agree. And that's where, when you're looking at Calvert-Lewin and the way that Leeds played, it was just very difficult for him to get involved, because if he doesn't get the ball served on a platter to him where he can just shoot it or head the ball in, it's very difficult for him to create. Wissa was all over the pitch. He's creating for other players. He should have scored himself. He had one on the doorstep and just completely missed it. So you just look at his expected goals, that they should have been a lot higher. He just played very poorly when it came to his finishing. But the thing is that he's a forward that can do more than simply that. And I think with Brobby and with DCL, you're looking at guys that are just pure finishers. But Wissa showed he could do a bit more than that and create for some other players as well. And I think that's where the value of him definitely shows up time and time again. Now, I did want to mention, we have all the fixtures from last week. There was a lot of clean sheets, right? You see it on the screen here. There was 6 clean sheets overall. This is not going to be the norm going forward. So I think defenders scored a little bit higher than they should have. And again, as a result, the Cuyper and some of the other guys got some extra points. So for me, I think the big thing is don't overact the defense, because some defense played very, very well that, again, otherwise probably wouldn't have. And then on the other side, you got some pretty unexpected clean sheets from certain teams as well. So it's one of those game weeks where experience really showed overall. Even just look at Bournemouth versus City. Everyone was watching that game, and it probably shouldn't have been City's way, but it ended up that way and sucked for Bournemouth. But that continuity within the team definitely showed time and time again. But before we get out of here, let's talk about the guys that will probably rise in price before the end of the game week. Now, you can see if you're watching, you got 6 hours right now until price rises. So later tonight, they are going to rise. But who do you think is a player that you would be transferring in no matter what? Because, I see the Cuyper here. I'm not very keen on him. Sangaré is one that I really love for the price. I think he's only going to go up. And then Calafiori probably goes up. I think Pedro goes up. Solis might, but I don't necessarily see that happening. There was some momentum for him early, and then Coyote is another one who may go up. But who are the guys here that you see as potential need to have them in the team before they rise?
I think it's pretty easy this week. I think if you've only got one transfer in, I'd take Sangaré at 5.5, feels great value, but equally if he rises only 0.5, 6 million, he's a great value at 6 million. He can score, he can get assists, he gets DEFCON. I don't think there's necessarily a rush to bring him in, but I think he's a good option. And then João Pedro as well. If you don't have him, bring him in. The rest, I think, are all players which did well this week, but it's kind of more wait and see. I wouldn't be changing my team for De Cuyper. Calafiori, I think, has tough fixtures going forward. Might be a rotation with Hincapi. Odegaard, not super good. I'd rather have Solis at 6.5.
He did look good,
Palmer, he did, yeah.
Odegaard looked good. And he's only 6.5 as well, which is interesting, right? Do you want the left-sided player or do you want the cam, who, again, the injury concerns for Odegaard, but he did play pretty well compared to what I expected of him.
And I just don't think he's the Odegaard of 2 years ago, where he's like last year they rotated him a lot. There was talk of selling him,
Yeah.
So I think if you want to go for him, it's a nice differential. Palmer, I do like the punt on. If you're already sick of Bruno and you want to go for it, go for it. But for me, it's a wait and see on. I think there's just more point in waiting Chelsea to see if they do really well against Brighton. Great, I'm convinced. They then have Arsenal away. I'm going to watch that game. and then we'll have more decision on, is Cole Palmer worth 2 million more than Morgan Rogers, or do you just save 2 million to get Morgan Rogers and have João Pedro?
Yeah, that's the hard part, is that you do have to pay up an extra 2 million to get Palmer, but you do very likely get the penalties, right? Which you fully expect for Palmer. He'll probably be the penalty taker. And is that value worth it? You know, when you look at United, sure, Bruno gets a bunch of assists, he's on set pieces, but you're paying an extra 4 million to get him ahead of Mbeumo, ahead of Cunha, and then depending on how you view Šeško, same type of deal there. It's not quite the same gap, and so it's a bit easier to get Palmer in the team. But I agree with you completely. I'm interested about this front three for Chelsea because I feel like they'll always be on these lists depending on what happens, right? Pedro may have a bad week. He'll start to go down a bit. Palmer, probably the same thing. But how you differentiate between those three could be a great key to success in FPL this year because they are all really good prices. Even Palmer at 9.5, expensive, but can make it work. But my number one transfer has to be Sangaré. It just, the way that he played, if I was to look for a player who's a budget enabler, still not overly owned, I thought he was phenomenal in the game. Like, he's just all over the pitch. He can get DEFCON too, which is crazy for how much like advanced he played on top of that. Yeah. I think the price is really, really good. Now, again,
did he only play 75 minutes as well?
Yeah, they took him out. He only played 75 minutes, and he still had 13 defensive contributions. Wow. So he got DEFCON, I guess not easily because he just cleared it, but he only played 75 minutes. So that DEFCON per 90 is probably closer to 16, 17, right? Wow. Than the 13 that he actually got. So that's where, again, I think he's a player that luckily, if he does rise, you don't have to have him in your team. There's a lot of 6 mil players that are in a lot of people's teams that I think you can wait on to where you can kind of see him play a bit more, potentially even get through some of those tougher fixtures. You see the Chelsea at home, Villa away probably won't be a red fixture by the time that actually happens, but we'll see how they're playing come then. But Leeds away and Sunderland at home, Bournemouth away, all three of those are going to be fine for him, and he'll be heavily involved. So I just really like him. I like the way he played. I think Brentford's just doing a lot of good things right now. So for me, they're a team that I'm just watching very closely, and as much as it pains me because Thiago missed that pen, finishing on 0 points, there was a lot of upside even for him. He was on 1.0 XG and of course didn't score. So still more than happy to have him in the team, not looking to get rid of him just yet. But Tom, we kind of went through a lot of the fixtures, players who were on the move, on the rise. Is there any final thoughts for you heading into game week 2? And who do you want to captain? Because there's a lot of different options. Do you go back to Haaland? Do you stick with Bruno? My model loves Szoboszlai this week. They have him as the top projected player. Wow. Yeah, I really like him in the matchup this week, obviously on penalties. Again, it's Forest at home, which I was not overly convinced by Forest. I didn't think they looked very good. And then they have Ipswich away, Fulham at home, so 2 good fixtures for Liverpool. Who are you looking at as far as captains, and who are the teams that you're targeting this week?
Yeah, I think use your transfer wisely if you want to use it. If you can roll it, like you spent weeks building a team, don't just be put off by the first game week. You know, you kind of want to you don't want to waste your transfer and then the player you took out did well in game week 2 just as you'd predicted in preseason. So yeah. I think as much as you can be conservative, do. And then for captaincy, I think it's kind of, Haaland didn't look convincing in game week 1, so I won't be captaining Haaland even at 15.5 million. I think Bruno at Ipswich is the clear favourite for me. That's probably the easiest option, and that's probably what I'll go with.
Wow, not believing in that Ipswich comeback from this week. Okay, all right, Tom. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going to go with it just yet. I think I just need more information. I got to see how things shake out throughout the week because we do have some midweek fixtures for the Carabao Cup. Again, not a lot of impactful players will play, but some may be in consideration, and there may be some movement as a result. But yeah, it's hard because I may just roll Haaland again because I didn't love Palace, but Bruno may have to be the move going into this week. He can't possibly blank 2 game weeks in a row, right, Tom? I mean, come on.
He did this at the start of last season. He started really slowly. So I just think, the reason I brought Bruno in, I was actually no Bruno for a long time. Yeah. The reason I brought him in was I didn't need the funds for anything else. So I was just like, Palmer wasn't playing well in preseason. Now we've got more information. It's like 12 million is massively overpriced. I probably want to distribute that when I get to wildcard. But for now, I think he's probably going to be the one of the highest scoring midfielders for the next game week.
Yeah, no, I agree that the upside is still there. Again, they played so poorly against Hull, and Hull was so sound defensively that there just has to be more in there for United, and hopefully they get it going this week. But I wouldn't say I'm convinced, but back at Old Trafford, probably they can get it done against Ipswich. So I am with you. I think Bruno's probably the top option. I do like Szoboszlai a lot. And then depending on if you want to get even more differential, there's definitely more options beyond that. But that's where I would be looking at least to start. But thank you, buddy, for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll be back next week recapping all things Game Week 2 and the top transfer targets heading into Game Week 3. So until next time, we are out. Peace.